This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should, too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go. Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida, this is Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio, a review of Royal Caribbean's Mariner of the Seas today from Kevin. Not going to have Richard with cruise news this week. In fact, I actually sent him a note, and I was like, hey, what time did you want to record today? And he sent me back a picture from Universal Studios of him and Homer Simpson. So we won't have Richard today. We'll have him back next week, and enjoy your time down there in Orlando. All right, Kevin's on the line. How you doing, buddy?
Doing all right, Doug. How about you?
You've been on Mariner a couple of times, right?
One other time. It's been quite some time, but we've definitely been on several of her sister ships, so very familiar with.
Well, before we get to Mariner of the Seas, we'll take a step back here. As we've talked about on the show before, you have recently just moved to Central Florida. So this might be an obvious answer, but what made you want to do this 5-night cruise from Port Canaveral, specifically on Mariner of the Seas?
Yeah, so the itinerary first looked really, really great, and one that seemed very relaxing. And then also my wife works in the academic world, and so trying to find, a little vacation during, like her spring break is usually one of the things we like to do. And so usually find us mid-March on a cruise somewhere.
With it being spring break and everything, did you actually stay at the port the night before the cruise?
We did go ahead and stay over the night before. I was able to cash in some, loyalty points at the, Town Place Suites there right across from the port. Mm-hmm. And it's, fantastic spot. And, we were able to actually get over to Cape Canaveral a little early that day, being the fact that I was on a weekend, and kind of play tourist for a bit, which was fantastic. And there was also one of the Starlink rocket launches kind of just before sunset that we got to see perfectly fine from our balcony at our hotel too. So, have you ever been up in that observation tower there? Never have, actually, no.
So it's time to board Mariner of the Seas. How was your embarkation process, and how long did it take you from the curb to being on board the ship?
It was really quick. So I think last time, we kind of, one of the previous times where I did an interview with you, we sailed on Adventure of the Seas, and actually out of the same terminal, which I think is like Terminal 5, kind of over there on the north side of the port. And, that time it was bumper to bumper traffic, and even took us a real long time to even get into the parking garage. This time was night and day. It was easy breezy. I mean, there's still a Carnival ship in the area too, and they both kind of have like the same entryway. And so the traffic, like I said, can get really backed up. But this time we just, almost pulled right up. They took our luggage, we parked our car, and then really from the car to the ship, 15 minutes. It seemed like we never really stopped except for security. Someone mentioned that there was, I think they said like 1,000 people missing from our ship for some reason, and during the embarkation, it seemed like that. Cause there was no one really in the terminal, and, really quick to get on board.
What were your first impressions once you got on board this go around?
It's a nice ship. So, it's definitely not, the latest and greatest. It's not, Wonder of the Seas or Icon or any of those, but, it's a very nice ship that they do keep up pretty well. And, you'll have a great time on it. What kind of stateroom did you book for this 5-night cruise, and what did you and the family think of it? Yeah, so we had a standard balcony on this one. Can't remember I think it's like on deck 9, if I recall, and kind of more towards the front of the ship, and it was nice. So it was adequate. We have transitioned my son. He's 3.5 years old now, and this was the first cruise we tried him actually like on a pull-out sofa versus one of the pack and plays that they offer on board. And the one downfall about that and being in a balcony room is they only service your room once a day. So the pull-out sofa kind of stays out all the time, and it makes the room a little crowded, especially for having 3 people. But in the long run, it was manageable. So I have a question, and this might sound ridiculous, but I don't have kids, so I want to ask you this. How like if you have let's say a bunk bed in a cruise cabin, do they have the bumpers, I guess you can call it, on the beds for the little ones if you wanted those? We didn't actually ask for that, but we asked for extra pillows, and we kind of use that as bumpers, where kind of just put them under the sheet and kind of make sure that, if he kind of rolls around, you won't fall off. And unlike if you have a standard like pull out sofa at home, that part right by the back cushion, there's usually a big gap and stuff. On the cruise ships, that backs up right to the wall, so there isn't any sort of place for them to fall off. So really, if you put up those extra pillows, and that was perfectly fine for him at least.
Being on deck 9, how were those ships laid out? Like, how far are you from the action from either the Windjammer if you're going down to the promenade?
Yeah, so just a couple decks. I want to say the pool deck and the Windjammer, I think we're on deck 10 or 11 on that ship. So really just one or two decks up. And, unfortunately we were, I guess, on the front part of the ship, so you'd have to kind of walk all the way to the back. But I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Kind of, first world problems, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
And then obviously the promenades on deck 5. I think that's true on most of Royal Caribbean ships. And, it's really not too bad to get down there.
Well, let's talk about the food, and we'll start up top at the Windjammer Marketplace. How was that throughout the week?
Being the fact there are a couple of sea days on this trip and everything, and a few less options than like on an Oasis class ship, you do find yourself at the Windjammer, and we did for both breakfast and lunch, and a lot of great options. I mean, I think in general the variety isn't the best. Where you often see it. I mean, obviously breakfast. I mean, there's only so many breakfast items you can really have out there, really. But lunch there are some different options. But I think on the first day, especially obviously embarkation day, I mean, any cruise ship, no matter if you're on whatever cruise line you're on, first day is always really crazy, right? And so it's hard to find a seat and so forth. But as everyone kind of got in the groove, it was much easier to find a spot to set up on.
Okay, Kevin, so you've been on dozens of cruises at this point in your life. So do you have an embarkation day strategy to avoid like what you were just talking about up in the buffet area?
Depends on the ship for the most part. So the last cruise that we were on was on the Allure of the Seas before this one. And, I often like to go to the Park Cafe, that's in the Central Park District on that ship, because it's usually a little bit less crowded and not too bad. And, on Carnival, I usually always try and hit up the barbecue. Pig and Anchor location there, because those tend to be less known, and because they often seems like when you board the ship, they always say, "Oh, go to the buffet. Buffet's on X deck," whatever it is, that for that ship. And but this time around, unfortunately, there weren't a huge amount of options on the first day. It was pretty much that or Sorrento's Pizza, and we weren't really feeling pizza for this one.
Gotcha. How about the main dining room? How was that experience and the food in there?
Main dining room was good. So we had early dining. This was the first sailing I think that I'd seen, or I think Royal Caribbean had just opened up where they now have like 3 or 4 dining times that you can choose. It's not just like 5:15 and 8:30. I think they've thrown 1 or 2 there in the middle, but regardless, we still ended up with the early one, just with the little guy and the fact that, he had needs to be done by a certain bedtime. But, I'd say the service in general was okay. It wasn't the best. They started getting a routine of what we wanted, but then we thought you were in a routine, and then the cart fell off the track. But the food quality itself was pretty good. We enjoyed pretty much everything we had, and they have good selections.
Do they have a lot of upcharges on the main dining room menu on Royal Caribbean if you wanted to throw a fillet and lobster or whatever with your meal?
They do. They have a fair share of them. I think it's like 3 or 4 each night that don't change. And like you said, it is often like a filet mignon, and then like a lobster tail, and then a like filet and lobster tail if you really want it, and so those are always there. We didn't try that this time. We just kind of stuck with the main fare. They have a different menu each night for the most part, so it's kind of like a theme night, whether it's a French themed, Italian themed, so forth. Funny thing is on this one that both my wife and I noticed very quickly is seemed like they had escargot every night. It didn't matter if it was Italian, French, U.S., whatever. It seemed like they must have had a sale on escargot that week or whatever. But it was really good though. We did get it a couple times. But it was kind of funny. But it was nice to have the variety, where they don't have that many things that show up on the same on repeating nights. So if you do see something on the menu and you really want to try it, definitely try it, because you may not see it again, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I know escargot has been hit or miss over the past few years with supply issues, or the price of them has just been too expensive for the cruise lines to buy. So, yeah, when you see it more than one time, that's a real treat.
Yeah, on the 5-night cruise, I mean, it was on there. I think it's 4 of the 5 nights, and I'll say by the end of the sailing, we got it, and I was like, oh, this isn't as good today,
Right?
But at the beginning, it was really good.
Yeah, your arteries are clogged by that point, right? You can't take any more butter. Right. Any specialty restaurants for either lunch or dinner?
No specialty restaurants, but we did check out some of the freebie things around the ship. I mean, between they have the Sorrento's pizza there on the on the promenade, and we definitely stopped there throughout the cruise a couple times. And they always seem, that's one thing Royal Caribbean I think does a lot better than Carnival at times, is there's usually very little line right at the pizza place, and they keep you moving really quickly even if there is a line. And but yeah, their pizza was really good. Also on the ship they had the dog house, which is basically just hot dogs and brats, I think is what they offered. And you just stroll up there and say, oh, how many you want, and then they have the fixings kind of right next to it, everything that you kind of want. So we tried both of those, and really enjoyed them.
What's the situation like if you wanted to get coffee or juice in your morning, like via room service? Room
service, yeah. I should have said that too. Yes, we also did try room service, especially on the port days in particular, and so that all that's complimentary. If you want like the continental type stuff, which includes coffee, kind of pastries, cereals, things like that, they put a hang tag in your room, and you just kind of put it out the night before and select your time, and all that's complimentary. There are things on that menu that you can get hot items like omelets and stuff too. Those do come with an upcharge, but we tried that a couple of times. And what's funny is you'd circle time, and it's usually like a 30-minute window. So let's say we might have circled like say 7 to 7:30, and I think a couple of the mornings they showed up like at 6:45. I was like, oh, thank God I set my alarm for them to show up, because they showed up early. So it's nice to have that. But then also around the ship, there's a couple different coffee options between. They just have like just basic coffee in the Windjammer, things like that, and then also Cafe Promenade too basically has like Starbucks like drinks. This ship did have a Starbucks, but you might as well try. You can purchase the same stuff at Cafe Promenade for a little bit less money, and then we're Diamond Plus members with Royal Caribbean, and so we get five free drinks a day, which is a fantastic benefit in my book. And they don't count at Starbucks, but they do count at Cafe Promenade. So definitely a nice feature to take advantage of if you have that benefit. Not
food related, but with your Diamond status, do you have access to like a lounge on board?
They do have a lounge, and they back in the day, it used to pretty much be unlimited drinks during like say like a 2 or 3 hour period, like in the evening, kind of like happy hour basically. But they kept the lounge, but they did away with the free drinks to that lounge. I mean, you can get you can get drinks, but they would count against that drink allotment, whatever your status is. I think it's Diamond gets 4, Diamond Plus gets 5. I think Pinnacle gets 6 as of today.
As far as the entertainment goes, now with your son being 3.5 now, is he starting to get into the entertainment and, the visual, like the shows and everything like that?
Oh, for sure. So one thing that Royal Caribbean really does a good job is taking advantage of that promenade. And they often have shows kind of up and down that throughout the cruise, and or just small like pop-up shows in some aspects. And we were just walking down after dinner one night, and they had a small singing and dancing show just kind of right there in the middle, and we pull off to the side, and he loved it, right, as dancing and everything like that, and really having a grand time. And we also took him to one of the like stage shows that they were having that was also kind of around like singing in particular, and he was again, same thing, just loving it. And so I thought it was a pretty good show myself, and no plot or anything like that. It's kind of just redoing songs you've heard of by the artist, and obviously a 3.5-year-old really loved it too. So they had pretty good entertainment.
Anything else that y'all might have done around the ship?
Obviously they have other entertainment throughout the ship, Calypso people by the pool and other things like that. And that was obviously really good. The ship as well has a ice show as well. We didn't make it to the show, but again, I've through word of mouth also heard that was also pretty nice. And they offered it besides just being on like a couple nights. They even had it, I think, during the day on one of the sea days, and that's when we tried to go. But unfortunately, my son decided it was nap time instead. But a sea day cruise nap is, I think, good for any age, really.
Oh, yeah. How was the ship for crowds and congestion during the sea days, since you were on during spring break?
It really wasn't too bad. I mean, obviously you had your usual congestion points kind of in the windjammer area for sure. In the pool area, if you were wanting to be on the main pool deck right by the pool, I mean, you probably had to be out there really early to grab a seat. But there's a lot of deck chairs kind of throughout the ship, and so you could really find one pretty easily. So not too bad. I mean, like I said at the beginning of this, someone mentioned that there was roughly 1,000 people missing from it. I couldn't really tell once the cruise really got going, because it seemed like a normal occupancy, and I never did ask whether that was true or not, but it seemed normal. So.
Mm-hmm. How was the smoking in and around the casino?
I think it was on deck 4 is where the casino is on the ship. It is, if you're standing right by the elevator banks by it, you could smell the smoke a little bit, but besides that, it really wasn't too bad. There's an opening, I guess, into the cafe, or not cafe. There's an opening into the promenade area, and you really couldn't see that, or you couldn't really smell the smoke either up there.
The ports of call on this sailing, you had 2. You went to Cozumel and Perfect Day at CocoCay. So we'll start at Cozumel. What'd you do there?
Yeah, Cozumel was really nice. So we took we had not been there actually in quite a while, and so it was nice to come back and see some very familiar sights. We did an excursion through the ship that was a hop on, hop off bus, and it's not like one of those buses you'd think of like from New York or anything like that, but it was it was still it was an open air bus, and they had basically 3 stops that you could get off at, and one was basically downtown Cozumel. They kind of put you off there by one of the churches, and you could kind of walk around down there and do some shopping or just kind of walk around or whatever you want to do. You had about an hour there to do that, and then you hopped back on a bus and went down a little ways, and then went by. It's kind of right by the waterfront, and they had a like a Mayan dance team kind of do like a little traditional dance right there, mm-hmm. and then kind of had a little bit of time to take some pictures and things like that. So, and then the last stop was right at one of those beach clubs, and you basically had you could choose 1 or 2 hours to spend there at the beach club, and it included chairs and umbrellas and things like that. And, I thought the space at the beach club wasn't really super great, I guess. I mean, the chairs weren't that comfortable either, but, a beach day, it's hard to beat that in the Caribbean.
Is this one of those excursions where you're like, okay, I've had enough beach time, I want to go back to the ship, and you can kind of break away and go back to the ship at your leisure?
You definitely could, for sure. It was, you could really kind of exit the tour at any time. And even after the second stop, they said, "Oh, do you want to go back? If anyone wants to go straight to the beach, you can just stay on the bus." So if you really just wanted to have extra time at the beach, that was an option. But yeah, you could break away if you really wanted to.
Sounds like you took a lot in there, though. Very cool.
We've done a lot of things in Cozumel, but that was definitely a new one for us, and it's kind of neat to see part of Cozumel you don't really get to see very often if you go to just one of the straight to one of the beach resorts.
And unlike Cozumel, this next port you went to, you've been there quite a bit lately. So what did y'all do at Perfect Day this time around?
Honestly, it's like a same routine. So one thing we did try to do was we tried to do the up and away hot air balloon excursion, and we bought that actually back during, I think it was their Black Friday sales, obviously back in November, December timeframe. But unfortunately, it was a little too windy. And so the downfall is you didn't really know that till you showed up and tried to do the excursion. There was just a sign there that said, "Sorry, too windy. We're not flying today." And but at the very least, we still kind of did our usual, which is go hang out at the Oasis Lagoon, which is that little protected water area there, just as you go onto the chill island side of it. And it's a nice protected area, especially for having a little one. You don't have to worry about the waves there or anything like that. And we also went and checked out the splash pad too. And so a lot of stuff is still probably a little too old for my son, to actually get to really enjoy, but he still got to have fun and kind of spraying the water guns and things like that. So it was good.
When you buy something like that so far in advance, so for instance, you said Black Friday for the up and away, how does it work when, okay, it's canceled, the weather's not working out with us? Are they refunding your credit card or giving you like onboard credit? How does that play out?
They refund your money back to your onboard account, but it is also fully refundable back to you, right? So if you at that point in the game, I try and pre-purchase as much stuff as I can. So we didn't really have much on our onboard expense accounts at that point. Mm-hmm. And so, and it was the very last day of the cruise. So Royal Caribbean basically, I had a credit at the end of the cruise, and I called and asked the guest services, and they said, "Oh, you could either come down and we'll give you straight up cash. Feel free to spend it on board the ship, or we'll just refund it back to your credit card." And ultimately, that's what I ended up doing, and it did show back up on my card, within about a week. So it's pretty quick for the refund. I guess the downfall is you had such a great deal. Even if we try to do something else, you wouldn't have gotten such a great deal. Mm-hmm. As far as that. So that is a bummer of having the Black Friday situation, but it was disappointing, but we still had a fantastic day.
What are we talking, like 30% off for Black Friday?
It was actually 50% off.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For that one in particular, I think Royal Caribbean really does a good job with, because it's their island, right? So you can see some really good discounts on that. And some of those prices on the island are pretty high anyway. So I'm sure a lot of their renovations have already been paid for, and then some is what I would presume, but maybe I'm wrong. Obviously, I don't really know how much it truly costs, but when you're talking about a water park, ticket that Prince rivals going to Disney, definitely a lot of money in my book.
Plus, it helps them stack that Q4 earnings too, right?
Oh no, for sure. Yeah. I guess one highlight I didn't mention as well was that when we were there at Perfect Day, we did get to see the new latest, greatest icon of the seas. So, obviously we didn't get to go on board or anything like that, but got to see it from outside. And it's pretty kind of cool to see our ship next to that ship and just how big Icon really is compared to like Mariner.
They've obviously done some expansion lately at Perfect Day, but with a ship like that, the largest ship in the world rolling in next to y'all, did it feel crowded at all?
Not too bad. There is a lot of open area, and they just opened up, was that called like Hideaway Beach or something like that, not too terribly long ago. It wasn't bad. It felt a little more crowded than when we were there last time, but not unbearable. You could easily still find chairs when we got off the ship, and maybe if you waited a couple more hours, it might have been a little more challenging. But I think we were off by around I think it was like 9:30, something like that. So I guess we were maybe on the early side, but there was still plenty to choose from.
You make your way back to Port Canaveral. How was your debark process?
Debark, once again, was really, really quick and pretty easy. Since, we obviously live in the area, and it was a, Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning, we weren't really in any rush. So when kind of had a, leisurely breakfast at the Windjammer, and, and waited almost till they actually had hey, you really got to get off the ship, everyone. We're trying to clear this thing, and once we got off, it was pretty easy finding our luggage and getting through. They have the facial recognition as well, so super quick. And even if my little guy, my wife just picks him up, and it does facial recognition for him too, and we're off on our way. And so,
Nice.
Probably again from ship to our car was 10-15 minutes at most, and only another 45-minute drive after that. So we're home by mid-morning, which is fantastic.
Absolutely. So when it comes to driving and, parking at the pier, as you mentioned, you parked at the Royal Caribbean pier, but for some people, I would rather just park at the pier, pay the full price, $21 a day, whatever it is, and be done with it. But some people, if you're on a budget, you'll want to, pay half that and take the shuttle back and forth. Have you ever weighed those options out?
Never have. And I think a lot of that's just because when there's three of us and only two people can really carry stuff, we rather just kind of park at the pier, right, and just be able to, go straight from our car to the ship and vice versa. And we haven't at this point, but I could see where if someone was being really budget conscious, obviously, it may not actually be a bad thing at all, right? Because you don't have to worry about looking for a parking spot and so forth. And, you're picked up and dropped off right by the front door. Because finding a parking spot can be time consuming too, right? Because there's not anyone directing you to where open spots are. You're really just kind of going level by level and working your way up and just hoping you find somewhere. And obviously, there's a spot there somewhere, otherwise they wouldn't have let you in. But it can take a little bit of time and some stress just trying to find it. And then, obviously if you're going out of Central Florida at certain times of the year, you have to worry about, hailstorms and things like that. So you want to be inside, maybe not outside, all other stuff. And yeah, it could be stressful, but so far it's worked out for us. So.
Debark morning sucks anyways, so it's like one of those things where you might as well for me at least, park in the parking lot of the cruise ship. You get out, you have your bag, you clear customs, you do what you got to do, you get in your truck or your car and you head out instead of having to wait in another line to go to a parking lot to pick up your car. I don't know, we're all different, and it's so subjective, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, the last day debark day is never a fun day per se, right? Because you have to be up early and I know at most ships you usually have to be out of your staterooms by 8 a.m. And, I think every other day we were never even up maybe before 8 a.m., in some aspects. So it's never a fun day for anyone's sake. So
looking back on this 5-night cruise, do you have any first-time tips to offer either someone sailing Mariner of the Seas or cruising with a family?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great itinerary. I know I've seen, being in Central Florida, you definitely kind of often look at the different itineraries, and it's one of the, in my book, more attractive ones, right? Because you get a beach day at CocoCay and Cozumel. I'm not going to say everyone loves Cozumel, but I think it's one of the more popular ports, and I know it's one of our favorites. And then you get 2 sea days. It's a fantastic itinerary, and and we really enjoyed it. And you often can get some great deals on these classes of ships like the Mariner, Adventure, things like that. I mean, they're not going to have the latest and greatest things, like the zip lines on like the Oasis class ships and so forth. But there's a lot of fun to be had, and you'll have a great time, and it's a great deal.
The biggest highlight for y'all?
I think returning back to Cozumel. Like I said kind of earlier, I mean, we love Cozumel, and it's kind of funny is we even had like a targeted like what shops we wanted to shop at the port. Certain things we love. There's like a spice place there that's in the port. We love kind of picking up the Mexican spices, and we also have been kind of eyeing up stuff from Carrie Aloha actually, and you can get some really good deals at the international locations versus the domestic ones. And so we had to stop by there and wanted some T-shirts at some other places, and so we had a nice little shopping list to go hit up on. And Cozumel has it's just easy to get around, and we really enjoyed our return trip back to Cozumel.
Final thoughts of Mariner of the Seas?
Fantastic ship, usually a great deal. Highly recommend it for anyone, and definitely look for a good itinerary.
You've been talking with Kevin about his 5-night sailing on Royal Caribbean's Mariner. Kevin, thank you so much for stopping by, my friend. Always good talking to you.
Same to you, Doug. Have a great rest of your day.
Just back from a cruise? Let's talk about it. Email Doug at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, Give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,